I want a word or phrase to describe Hillary Clinton.
Corrupt. Liar. Deceiver.
If Donald Trump became president, what would happen?
I'm going to become a Canadian. I'm going to go back to wherever I'm coming from.
In the 2016 US presidential election, Hillary Clinton now leads Donald Trump by about 6%. Now this is no small lead considering most presidents tend to be elected with a lead of less than 5%. So let's take a look at some of the numbers behind the numbers. Favorability has been one of the most interesting factors in this election cycle. In favorability polls, respondents are asked about whether they have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of a given candidate. In other words, do you like them or not? Donald Trump's favorability is terrible, 39% favorable to 59.8 unfavorable. He's 20.8 points more unfavorable than he is favorable. People hate this guy. Hillary Clinton does a bit better, but her numbers still aren't great. 42.4% favorable to 55.8% unfavorable, so she's 13.4 points more unfavorable. And her unfavorability seems to be on the rise. Now, one of these two people will almost certainly be the next president of the United States. So the US is about to have a very unpopular president either way. But some of the mainstream media don't seem to think this is a problem. In an article for the Washington Post, Alan Abramowitz and John Sides acknowledge the unusually high unfavorables, but conclude it's just people being passionate about their own candidate, and they cherry-pick data from a single poll to support their argument. So let's talk about this. Are the high unfavorables a problem or not? Why do people hate these candidates so much? And to Abramowitz and Sides, I really must ask, what's wrong with you? So let's start by talking about what cherry picking is. Here's Clinton's favorable versus unfavorable chart once again. Every one of those dots represent a poll. As useful as polls are, they only really give you good insight if you look at them as a group. If I were to single out these two numbers here, I could probably make a very good argument that Clinton's unfavorables are basically within the margin of error of her favorables. If I were to look at these two data points on the other hand, I'd be able to exaggerate her unfavorability rate by almost double. That's what cherry picking is, selecting and presenting only the statistics that support what you want to sell to your audience, rather than working from the full picture. I have no doubt that professional journalists in the mainstream media know what cherry picking is and why it's dishonest, but they still do it anyway. There's nothing particularly wrong with showing a single poll for interest's sake or when it's the only information available. But if an aggregation of many polls are already available and someone wants to show you just one, prepare to be lied to. And this is exactly what Abramowitz and Sides do in this article. They examine one study taken several months before they published the article to establish the point that Clinton and Trump aren't really that hated after all. Their conclusion, Hillary Clinton received an average rating of 41 degrees and Trump received an average rating of 40 degrees. Clinton and Trump weren't unusual, however. None of the political figures included in the survey had an average rating above 50. Ted Cruz's was 41, Bernie Sanders was 47, and President Obama's was 46. The impression that they leave you with then is that Trump and Clinton aren't any more hated than anyone else. But is that really true? No. I won't contest the Ted Cruz figures, his favorability is actually quite low.
You're angry at Washington, and he uses angry rhetoric.
But Sanders and Obama are not hated nearly as much as Trump or Clinton when you look at the big picture. Sanders is nearly 10 points more favorable than unfavorable and has a net positive favorability for nearly a whole year. And Obama's favorability is also positive by about 2%, and his favorable and unfavorable ratings have been within only a few percentage points stretching back well over a year. So Obama and Sanders' numbers are actually quite different from what Abramowitz and Sides showed you by cherry-picking a single poll. They also didn't show you the numbers of very popular politicians. Joe Biden's numbers, for example, are extremely high. In the big picture, both Clinton and Trump have very negative favorability rates. As even this very same Washington Post article points out, only a minority of respondents, 23%, had unfavorable opinions of both. Now the tone is wrong here, but the fact is good enough, even though it's only from one poll. We can expect from this information that nearly a full quarter of Americans will be voting for someone they don't like. If nearly half the country hates the president, that's called democracy. You don't always get what you want.
Boycott Hollywood and all the commies! McCarthy and John Wayne were right!
But if you also hate the candidate you're forced to vote for just because you hate the other candidate even more, well, that's pretty ugly. So why do Americans hate these two so much? Well, unfortunately, I can't find an aggregation of data for these qualitative factors, but I can show you the most recent poll, which I think tends to indicate that the American people have pretty good instincts on the matter. According to this, again, one poll, so grain of salt, the big reasons why people hate Trump is that they think he's too inexperienced and suspect he's a racist. I gotta say, I think that's fair enough. He's never held government office of any kind, and on the racism charge, well, I don't know what's in his mind, but he has on multiple occasions retweeted white power groups, and a lot of his rhetoric is anti-immigrant.
Are you ready? Get him out of here!
That doesn't necessarily make him racist, but it's sure to garner him the votes of racists and bigots. And honestly, I think that matters a lot more than what's in his actual heart of hearts. I don't care about his feelings, I care about his policy. With Clinton, the top factors are that she's not trustworthy, is corrupt, and changes her positions when it's politically convenient. Well, all of that is very obviously true. She's received loads of money from special interests, most visibly Wall Street, and she's changed her positions on tons of issues, always towards what's most politically expedient.
And I think that NAFTA is proving its worth.
I have been a critic of NAFTA from the very beginning.
I believe that marriage is not just a bond, but a sacred bond between a man and a woman.
Yes, I'm very proud to state that I'm a full supporter of marriage equality right now.
I get accused of being kind of moderate and center. I plead guilty.
Are you a progressive or are you a moderate?
I'm a progressive.
Together, these two things make her pretty untrustworthy. So to the Trump camp and the Clinton camp, let me say this. You're in the most important, most expensive, and most highly talked about popularity contest on the planet Earth. And yet, you've both managed to make yourselves extremely unpopular. What's wrong with you?